The drive to the cabin took nearly 9 hours. I had started before sunrise, packed my bags into the back of my rusted out SUV, and followed the old coastal highway north until the traffic vanished and the cell signal disappeared. The sky was a gray sheet, not stormy, but dull, heavy. I didn't come here for sunshine anyway. I came here to get away, to write, to think, maybe both, maybe neither. The cabin was something I found online, listed on one of those obscure websites that looks half broken. I like that. It seemed private, untouched. I didn't tell anyone I was going. I hadn't talked to many people lately anyway. I'd spent the last year spinning my wheels in the city, surrounded by noise and faces I no longer recognized. Work had become pointless. I felt like I was watching myself live through a screen. This trip, I hoped, would cut through the static. There was something about the ocean that always grounded me, especially in the off-season when the beaches were empty and the water looked almost black. The cabin stood on a small bluff, just beyond a narrow dirt path that my car barely handled. Pine trees walled in 3 sides, thick and damp. The 4th side dropped off into the coast. No beach, just jagged rock and sharp wind. Waves hit the rocks below with no rhythm, and the air smelled like old salt and something faintly metallic. The cabin itself looked old, but well kept. Cedar shingles, a small deck with a bench, and 2 tiny windows facing the water. It was exactly what I wanted. Inside was even smaller than the pictures made it look. A single bed in the corner with a scratchy wool blanket, a wood stove, a kitchenette with a propane burner, and a table under one of the windows. There was electricity, but no internet. No TV. I brought a solar charger for my phone, but by the time I realized I had no service, it didn't matter. I shut the phone off. No one was calling anyway. The first night, I didn't sleep. Not from fear, not yet. Just the silence, it was so loud. I hadn't been alone like this in years. Every creak of the wood, every groan of the trees in the wind sounded foreign and close. The cabin expanded and contracted like it was breathing. I kept the lights off and watched the ocean. It moved constantly, like something alive, but without concern. It didn't care I was watching. It didn't even notice. The next few days were calm. I read a lot. I made coffee and sat outside when the wind wasn't too strong. I wrote in short bursts. Nothing good, but it felt nice to put thoughts down without noise around me. I started going on long walks along the cliffs, watching the birds wheel in the sky. Sometimes I saw seals far below on the rocks. Other times, just waves and more waves. I made soup from cans I brought. I collected driftwood and arranged it by shape, just to pass time. I sharpened pencils. I washed the same mug every day. There was a pattern in the stillness. Then something changed. It started on the 5th night, I think. I had taken a longer walk than usual and returned just before dark. The wind had picked up and the sky was darker than usual, even for the coast. I went inside, lit the stove, and made some tea. As I was setting the mug down, I noticed something on the table, dirt. Just a few flecks, scattered like someone had brushed their fingers there. I didn't remember leaving it. I'd been careful about tracking mud in. I cleaned it up and forgot about it. Maybe it was from my coat. But the next morning, I found more dirt. This time, near the door. Not a lot, but enough to notice. The door had been locked, I was sure of it. The windows, too. But I started checking them again, one by one, making sure they were shut tight. I told myself I was overreacting. It was probably just blown in somehow, .b why the 7th day. I stopped telling myself that. I found a footprint. Just one. It was near the edge of the deck, in a patch of moss that hadn't grown back fully. I stared at it for a long time. It wasn't mine. Too wide, too short. I took a picture of it, then deleted it. I didn't want it on my phone. I felt stupid. I hadn't seen anyone since I got here, and the trail up to the cabin was nearly invisible from the road that I started locking the door during the day, too. I kept the lights off after sunset. I listened. Every night, the waves crashed below, but now I was listening for something else. A step, maybe. A breath. Something. On the 9th night, I heard it. It was late. I hadn't slept. I was lying on the bed, staring at the ceiling, when I heard the soft crunch of gravel outside. One step, then another. Slow. Deliberate. I didn't move. I didn't even breathe. The steps stopped near the door. I waited. Nothing happened. Minutes passed. Then, without a sound, I felt it. That sense you get when someone is standing behind you, even if you can't see them. But I was alone. I stayed frozen for hours. When morning finally came, I opened the door slowly. Nothing, just the trees and the ocean. But on the railing of the deck, there were more smudges. Fingerprints. Dirt like before. I wiped them away and locked the door. After that, I stopped going for walks. I stayed inside most of the day. I ate less. I barely slept. Every night, I waited, listening, but the sound stopped coming. Days passed, empty and cold. The ocean looked darker now, the waves harder. I started thinking about leaving early. I had another week booked, but something about the place felt wrong. Off, like I had stayed too long. Then, one morning, I woke to silence. Not quiet, the real kind. The kind where even the birds are gone. I looked outside. Fog had swallowed everything. I couldn't even see the trees. Just white. Thick. Vet. The ocean was gone. The sound of the waves, too. I stepped outside just a little. The fog didn't move. It just hovered, dense and dead. I went back inside. That day, I checked everything again. The windows. The locks. I even opened the cabinets to make sure no one had crawled inside. Paranoia was starting to win. I wasn't sure how much of it was real anymore. But the dirt kept showing up. On the table. On the floor. I stopped cleaning it. That night, I didn't sleep again. Around 3 in the morning, I heard something. Not outside. Inside. A soft creak of wood, not from the wind. From weight. Like someone stepped gently on the floorboards. Then nothing. I didn't move. My eyes were open, fixed on the dark ceiling. I didn't have a weapon. I hadn't thought I'd need one. I thought about the axe outside for chopping wood, but going out there in the dark seemed worse. That I waited until the light came through the windows, and then I stood up slowly. The cabin was empty. I checked every corner, every cabinet. Nothing. But on the table was something new. A feather. White. Small. I don't know how it got there. I picked it up and threw it outside. That afternoon, I packed my things. I didn't care about the rest of the reservation. I wanted out. I didn't wait for the fog to clear. I drove with my headlights on low, crawling down the trail until I reached the road. I didn't stop. I didn't look back. I drove for nearly 2 hours before I hit signal. My phone lit up with nothing. No texts. No calls. No missed anything that I didn't tell anyone about what happened. Not because I was afraid they wouldn't believe me, but because I didn't know what to say. I didn't see anything. I didn't hear voices. There were no ghosts or monsters. Just dirt, footprints, silence. The kind of silence that presses against your ears like pressure. The kind that watches out. A few weeks later, I went back to the site where I booked the cabin. It was gone. Not just the listing, but the whole page. Dead link. I searched the name of the rental company. Nothing. No trace. I thought about reporting it, but what would I say? Someone might have been watching me. I found a feather. I started sleeping better, little by little. I went back to work. I smile when people talk to me. But some nights, I still wake up at 3 in the morning. I lie still, staring at the ceiling, listening for the sound of wood creaking underweight. But I'm not in the cabin. I tell myself that every time. I'm not in the cabin anymore. And I never will be again. Even now, when I walk home from work in the dusk light and pass an alley or a stretch of trees, I sometimes feel watched. It's like the feeling never left. Just follow me home and learn to hide better. I started locking my apartment door twice. I keep a bat by the bed. Not because I think I'll need it, but because I remember what it felt like to have nothing. I think a lot about how nothing really happened, but how something still changed. Like something invisible stepped through the cabin with me and brushed its fingers on the table. And maybe that's the scariest part. Not what I saw, but what I didn't. And I wonder sometimes if it wasn't the cabin at all. If maybe something in me was already broken before I arrived, and that place just gave it space to speak, but the silence out there had a weight. A shape. I felt it. I still feel it. And no matter how far I move, or how many lights I leave on now, I'm not sure I'll ever be completely alone again. Because sometimes, late at night, just past the hour when the world starts to sleep, I still hear the creak. And I wait, and it waits back.